Is overtraining a myth? The truth is that not many people training regularly in the gym will experience the true definition of overtraining. Recent studies are even saying that overtraining is a nonsense and virtually impossible to achieve. Should you be then worried about overtraining? There exist many articles about the overtraining syndrome, which is a real problem with negative side effects. But it is important to know how many people have known this syndrome on a very high level. In fact, many sports scientists are admitting and coming to the conclusion that individuals will never reach a true overtraining state. Research on elite athletes has found an ability to tolerate a threefold increase in training volume for up to 3 weeks. Think about that for a moment. A threefold increase in training volume, not for a single day or week, but for 3 weeks straight. In fact, it might be a reality that it's extremely hard to reach a truly overtrained state. And I don't mean to bore you with the science, but listen to these researchers' findings compacted into several important statements. Overtraining typically requires a greatly prolonged period of stressful training to achieve. That's point one. Point two, in preparing elite training programs, we will not underestimate the adaptive abilities of the human body. Point three, sports scientists are concluding that individuals will never reach a true overtraining state. Previous research in elite athletes has found an ability to tolerate a threefold increase in training volume for periods up to 3 weeks. Point four, a conclusion reached by Lehman is that overtraining results from load and intensity factors seems to resolve faster than overtraining results from excessive training volume. Overtraining from increased loads or training intensity should result within a few weeks of rest. Point five, it is a very reasonable recommendation that instead of total rest, if one feels they are in an overtrained state, a taper would be more optimal. In fact, many scientists say that people suffer more often from undertraining syndrome and don't come close to overtraining. It's not completely my personal opinion. The science supports this. Let's look instead at overreaching, a concept crucial to your bodybuilding success, and the science behind it. What exactly is the difference between overtraining and overreaching? Losing your appetite, altered sleep patterns, and mood changes are often a reflection of overreaching, not overtraining. Overreaching or overwork means a short period of increased work that deliberately exceeds your abilities. It's an intentional stress that you place on your body for a brief period of time, followed by a period of undertraining or deloading to allow for a greater supercompensation after effect. You can recover from overreaching after 1 or 2 weeks. It took me approximately 5 to 7 days of doing nothing to recover from 2 weeks of constant daily training effort. Here are a few more practical applications from some of the world's leading scientific experts. Point one, overreaching is where one increases the training stimulation in order to create a momentum of decrease in performance, but afterwards a supercompensation response is, or a rebound is appearing with increased performance at some point in the time after the phase is completed. Point two, Overreaching is a type of periodization where short-term, 1 to 2 weeks, increases in volume or intensity are followed by a return to normal training. This brief phase can result in a delayed performance increase approximately 2 to 5 weeks after return to normal training. Overreaching as a point 3 is an advanced training strategy where volume loads are increased for 2 to 3 weeks and then reduced to normal levels to enhance adaptation and performance to 2 to 5 weeks later by virtue of a rebound. That's the supercompensation effect. It requires careful planning and understanding of cumulative and delayed training effects. Overtraining is a maladaptation syndrome resulting when overreaching type of workloads are applied inappropriately. For example, over prolonged period or without adequate recovery or regard for the additional effects of other stressors. Long-term performance diminution and important fatigue seem to be the universal indicators of overtraining and may or may not be accompanied by other symptoms. Point 4. Overreaching is a condition produced most often by sudden increases in training volume. Overreaching may produce some of the signs and maybe also symptoms of overtraining, but not as severe. A reduction in training volume or intensity and return to normal training can produce an increased performance several weeks after the overreaching status. Sometimes a supercompensation effect will occur, boosting performance to new levels. It is important to know that overreaching can be planned very carefully, but planned into a periodized program, usually 1 to 2 weeks of increased volume, and may result in a performance boost. We are there speaking so much about overtraining everywhere on the internet. You can listen it on the TV, but in my opinion, overtraining has been blown out of proportion for commercialism. It certainly exists, primarily in endurance athletes, not so much with bodybuilders, and can absolutely hinder your progress, which is the reason one should imperatively include deload and recover weeks in your program design. Even so, the concept of overtraining became blown out of proportion and distorted over the years. Most exercise gurus are capitalizing on the desire of lazy people looking for an easy way out with messages like train more than 3 times a week will lead to overtrain. Really? That type of marketing has created a generation of lifters who are more concerned with how much rest to take than how much work to perform. Most people who discuss overtraining are using it to justify not working hard as opposed to working harder. In real life, it's very hard to meet anyone who was, as a matter of fact, really overtrained. But even in such a case, 1 or 2 weeks of rest, good nutrition could fix such a problem easily. Now that you can take the fear that you will become overtrained and throw it in the dumpster, it's time to address a bigger problem, undertraining. I will take that up next time. And thank you for listening. Have a nice training and don't be overtrained